Hi guys.
Hi,
How's everyone?
Hi,
Okay.
Lebza.
I'm trying to make my screen big, guys. Oh, technology. Wow, while we wait for our honorable guests to join us, I'm just going to try and figure out how to make my screen big. If someone on that side is educated on this matter, please advise. Also, I'm trying to see the recording. Okay, here's recording. So I need to pause that for a while. Because the interview for EA is simply telling you that the people who are interviewing you are not 100% clear on what it is that you do as an individual. Therefore, they just want clarity, guys. This is your time to shine. This is the time for you to inform you on what exactly it is that you do. Now, my advice to you guys is this. When you go for the EA interview, can you kindly, one, please note that EXA is going to give you a letter. Now, this letter is going to tell you of the outcomes that you submitted. Which one is missing? Let me make an example, guys. This is very important. Guys, please hear me out. This is very important, right? When you get a letter that says you are called for an EA interview, first and foremost, a lot of people are making a mistake. They're getting invited for an EA interview and they go there thinking it's a PR interview. Guys, please do me this favor. Before you even go for this interview, just find out, are you invited for an EA interview or are you invited for a PR interview? Now, guys, let me tell you this. When you are invited for an EA interview, the letter is going to tell you, Dear Simply Malebza, we have read your report, and according to the submission, you do not meet outcome 1, 3, 9, and 7. Guys, what this means is that the rest of the outcomes you have addressed adequately. Please do not spend your time trying to address an outcome that you have already met 110%. Do not address an outcome that you have already met 110%. At EA, what they want to know is you are missing outcome 1. So your job is to prepare to address outcome 1 in detail, clearly. And guys, remember what I said about jargon? You have to use the right words when you go for that interview. Do not take it for granted that the guys will know what you are talking about, or do not take for granted that the guys do not know jargon. So do not use words like the cable is injured. The cable does not get injured. The cable gets damaged, as an example. Guys, so I was going to the presentation. The reason I wanted to put up this slide is because when people go to EA, what I'm noticing is they are saying, oh no, but this guy is supposed to be in civil engineering because he's a civil engineer and I'm in civil. Guys, don't do it. A person working in water might not necessarily know what is going on in structures and vice versa. So I want you to give the people access to your brain. Remember what we spoke about, giving people access to your brain. So now that we've spoken about that, I want to say, guys, so my advice to you is when you go for EA, kindly prepare a presentation that addresses only the outcomes that are missing in your reports. When you go to PR, guys, you have to address all 11 outcomes. Guys, I'm saying this again. When you prepare the presentation for EA, for the PR, you have to give evidence of all 11 outcomes. Whoa, let's pause. We need to pause. What people are doing is people are taking everything from the TERs and they're putting it in the PR report. And as a result, their presentation ends up having everything from the PERs. What I have asked you guys to do is simple, is please, can you take your highest, most complex work done and put it in that presentation? Guys, let me just reassure you on something. And I'd like all of you to kindly switch on your cameras. Thank you. Today we are all prepared, so can you please switch on our cameras? Guys, let me just say this. It is not physically possible to put everything that you have done on paper. Guys, let me repeat this. It is not physically possible to put everything that you have done in your work time for the 3, 5, 7 years on paper. What you need to do for your PR presentation, guys, is you need to put your most complex work. Okay, I'm going to kind of like pause a little. I was supposed to receive a little gift from our candidates. Remember last week we looked at the report from our candidates, and subsequent to our meeting, I asked our candidate to kindly share with us, the audience, 3 most profound lessons that he's learned from the review. Because what I did is I did give him my feedback before I gave it to the rest of you guys. Now I'm trying to open my email, and then this computer is doing its own thing. Okay, it's fine. I don't have the submission from him yet. But what I would like to do, guys, is now what we are going to do is, last week we looked into a general feel of what the report was like. So in other words, we said, if I was an assessor at EXA and I received this report, what was going to be my feeling? Was I going to pass this candidate? Was I going to send him to EA? Was I going to send him to PR? Now, the feeling around the room, or rather, let me leave the room because we will get to the feeling around the room. My take as an assessor, right? So I read it as an assessor, I read it as a reviewer, is that when you look at outcome 2, right, which is solution to engineering problems, it was well written. It was it was wonderful. What it did lack, though, which is like a very big deal in registration, is engineering judgment, guys. Guys, let me say this, and I don't say this to, I'm not saying this to be mean or anything like that. This is just a fact of life. Guys, everything that we do in engineering, every design, every problem we solve, I don't know, it is written somewhere in some book, it is written somewhere in some standard, it is documented in some paper that was written by some professor, it is published in a journal, it is published in, guys, I think you follow my logic, right? Everything we do in engineering is published. Why? Because everything you do needs to be safe. Engineering work makes things easy for the people, for the public. However, when things go wrong in engineering, they can kill a lot of people. We all know what happened in Japan with the atomic bomb. So guys, I want to tell you this. It is not about, EXA does not want to know how well you can read a textbook. You have your degree to prove that you can read theory, you can be tested on theory. Registration is about engineering judgment. Therefore, what this means is, when you take the theory that is already written down on paper and you apply it to your specific project, guys, hear me again. Refrain from writing work that was not done by yourself. Only write work that was done by yourself. Only write work where you were the responsible person. Move away from being tempted to say, in TR what I trained on. No, it is not about what you learned. It is about work that you are competent to do at this point in time when you are getting registered with EXA. So with that, guys, I just want to say that when you write your PR, please don't use words like training, supervisor, assistant, I got input. No, the PR is about work that you are competent to do. As such, please keep it to that scope. When you write something there, it means that you are competent and you are capable and you are able to do it independently without anybody guiding you. With that, let us call to stage our brave candidate who volunteered his report. It was an excellent report. But like I said before, guys, it is not possible to write everything in your report. So naturally, he did have some blind spots that we are having this online class to make him aware of. But before I go through my comments, guys, I just want to put down some rules. Because if we don't have rules, we are going to have a little bit of chaos. So what I am proposing is that when we go through the comments, right, we're going to start with my comments that I've put on the report. I've tried to share the report with you guys earlier today so that everyone can have a look at it. We're going to go to each comment. I'm going to try and explain what I mean by the comment. I'm going to say, okay, the reason I'm saying this is because I have observed this and this and this. And like maybe I've probably done in my life over 300 interviews. Yeah, it's crazy. But the comments mostly that I put in people's reports. One, guys, I want you to note this. If I make you aware of something once, like let's say in the first 2 pages, I say, do not do this and that. Tabby, so do not do this and this. Guys, for the rest of the report, you need to be aware of those things. I'm not going to go in the whole report and keep highlighting and highlighting. So what I'm about is I'm trying to transfer skills. I'm trying to transfer skills on how this thing is supposed to be done, how you're supposed to write, how you're supposed to, what to write and how to write. So if I show you an error in one place, I am expecting that you will take that same error and implement it in the rest of your PR, in the rest of your engineering report, and also in your TERs, guys. Do yourself justice, because when I review, I'm only going to look at your engineering report. Why? Because that is the one document that is telling the assessor how ready you are. So I want you to take those comments and I want you to implement them everywhere. Guys, don't disappoint me. Please, 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 just learn the lesson and implement it. So we're going to start now. Agenda number 3, we've welcomed everyone. We've touched a little bit about what we did previously in the other class. Now we're going to allow our candidate to share 3 of the most profound lessons that he learned from class 1 and basically from the comments that I gave him. The reason I'm saying this is because that report was truly and genuinely excellent. I think when the candidate wrote it, you know, he was very confident. And this is what you need with registration, guys. There is no right or wrong way of doing something. All that is needed is that by the time you submit your report, you just have to be confident and you have to be content with what you've written. The problem with not writing enough is that those people have to wonder, oh, what does he mean? What's missing here? That's when they call you for the EA interview. But ideally speaking, you write it down, the people are happy, you go straight to PR. So I want to know from my candidate, maybe if you share with us 3 of the most profound lessons that you've learned, more specifically because the class that we had last week was very, very powerful. Like the questions that we got, I mean, I, even as a reviewer or an assessor, I actually learned something from those questions because it did hit on some of my blind spots. So yeah, I'm handing over to you, candidate 1, because this is online class 1.
Hello, people.
Hi, hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you quite well.
Okay, cool. Firstly, I'd like to state that I did actually send.
But we can't see you.
Do you have to?
Oh, okay. If you're comfortable with us not knowing your face, it's fine. Continue.
Let me see. Let me see where that thing is done.
Guys, the class
video.
would be so much more
But you
fun
can
if we
speak
all
in the
show our
meantime.
faces.
Yeah.
Even now you can't see me.
There we go.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Hi. Anyways, I was still saying I did actually send the lessons that I got,
Okay.
but I didn't email them because I thought it's just 3 points, so I didn't have to email them.
Yeah.
So I had actually texted her on WhatsApp.
Okay.
Anyways,
we'll share
looking
it
at
with
them,
everyone on the WhatsApp group, so that's fine.
okay, cool. The first one that I learned, it was actually from the slides that our coach has shared. It's on the differences between outcomes 3, 7, and 9, which when I look at my report, I think that was one thing that was lacking a lot. So when you look at outcome 3, it's actually what we normally use for our designs. Let's say, for example, you have to design a sewer line. You know that you have to use, say, your Bernoulli's equation, you have to use your Manning's equations and all that. So those ones are universal. You can apply them in in China, in South Africa, or anywhere in the world. And then outcome 7, because when you check, it says meet regulatory and health and safety and all that. They are area specific. So you might find that, okay, now I'm designing in an area that has an earthquake. As much as I will still use my general design codes and standards, I will obviously have to modify them to meet the local conditions. So now, by making them meet the local conditions, it's part of engineering thingy, decision making, judgment rather. So that's outcome 9. So outcome 7, I feel like outcome 7 is the main driver into outcome 9 based on that. And then, because for example, let's say you want to build the building, right? And then they tell you that the soil is very bad. If the soil is very bad, you need to come up with a solution into the soil. Are you going to transport material to strengthen it? Are you going to use piles? Are you going to use a rough foundation? And then into that, there is an issue of settlement in the long run. There's an issue of cost. There's an issue of availability of material, and then you have to pick one. So it's outcome 7 making you decide also. And then by picking the final one, it's actually outcome 9. Sorry about that. My light actually went off, so I had to turn into this. And then the second lesson I learned, let me just open again where I wrote them. It's proper referencing of standards and guidelines. Okay, what I did was initially I had written that I've designed a sewer line of this size, and then I've used reinforced concrete of, say, maybe a density of 24, but then that's referenced in SANS 10100. So I never stated that, I only wrote what I did. And then when I went to outcome 3, I just wrote that, okay, SANS 10100, British standards 8007, which is what I use for designing for crack width. So now what I did in the edited report is I wrote that I designed my structure to BS 8007. And then so now by writing that I designed for a crack width of 0.2 millimeters according to BS 8007, I'm actually meeting outcome 3 by stating the standard within the sentence instead of having a separate subheading that states outcome 3. So when you see it eventually, you'll notice that I didn't even write that this is outcome 3, this is outcome 1. I scrapped all of that because the other lesson that I got last week was that, say for example, during your investigation, you might come up with some of the solutions to the things that you come across, say when you do your site visit. And then by coming up with those solutions, you are actually also at the same time exercising your engineering judgment. And then, and obviously you find that sometimes you have to communicate with the people, ask them how they feel about the project. So you are also meeting the outcomes that have to do with the effects of engineering activities on the general public as a whole. So there are many outcomes that you meet right from outcome 1 during your investigation. So I decided to scrap that. And then our coach also spoke about the TERs that we need to avoid in our engineering report. And I realized that, okay, mostly say outcome 1 or 1 and 2, obviously depending on how long the project takes and how fast you grow, you'll find that you are still getting introduced. You are on probably level A, B, or C in terms of what EXA recommends on our ability in our work. So I realized that I had actually used a project from TER1, but the trick there is I was doing what I said I was doing, just that you don't know what the assessor on the other side is gonna think. Even if when you got to work, they put you straight into it, but then based on that, they might think that, okay, this person was just starting to work. How come they're saying that they were already performing, even though you were performing? And then lastly, there is that part where we spoke about mitigation and risk. I've actually written it down that, okay, you can mitigate your risks, but you cannot eliminate them 100%. This also helps you with your engineering judgment on how to mitigate your risks. And then obviously there's also impact of engineering activities. For example, let's say we want to build a road and we have to cross a stream and maybe we have to go across protected vegetation. That road is likely to have it's definitely going to have an impact on the environment. But then how do we overcome that? How do we mitigate that? Some would say that, okay, we'll take the indigenous vegetation and put it somewhere on the side, water it, feed it with nutrients and all that until we are done constructing the road, and then we rehabilitate the whole area, and which is also part of your environmental impact assessment. So at the same time, you're meeting outcome 7, which has to do with the local effects of engineering activities. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That was, thank you so much. That was very profound, sir. I believe that when we share your final report, meaning to say that the one that you have, well, the one that you are going to write once you get all the comments is going to be quite different to the initial one that you submitted. The reason why I'm saying this, there's like one key reason why I'm saying this is because, guys, if you recall, the report was actually divided according to the outcomes. So it was saying group 1, which is outcome 1, 2, 3, group 2. And what happened with that is it left the reader to wonder a lot. It said, okay, I used this assumption, what? The reader didn't know where it came from. So the way it was written wasn't necessarily the way I prefer it as a coach, you know. Guys, let me tell you why I say this. It's because it is not sometimes possible to actually address outcome 1 and outcome 2 using one project. Let's start there, sharp. It is not sometimes possible to actually address outcome 1 and 2 using one project. This is like a real life fact. Now, what I want to make you guys aware of is this. When you are addressing outcome 1, guys, even if you are using an independent project, there is no way you can effectively reach a conclusion without addressing outcome 3, without addressing outcome 6, without addressing outcome 7, without addressing outcome 9. These are the core outcomes as far as EXA is concerned, because you are an engineer. You are solving complex engineering problems. Guys, if you are using, this is very important, guys. I want you to hear me. This is, I think on Sunday, we had an argument on the group about this, and I loved the argument because it was very profound. I don't see Bandile. Bandile was the one who started off with a statement. Is Bandile here? I don't think Bandile is here.
You're a professional.
Bandile said, guys, Bandile said something like this. He said, there is an engineering, there is a problem statement, and then there is an engineering problem statement, guys. I don't know how many of you saw that discussion, but that discussion was very profound. I'll tell you why. What the client does is, guys, a client is experiencing some problem. They don't actually, all they know is every time I switch on my kettle, the main switch goes off, as an example. That's what the client tells you. So Bandile is right. That is a problem statement. The client says, I don't know, but every time I switch on my kettle, the main switch trips. Now, what is the real engineering problem? The real engineering problem is, what is the root cause of that problem? Guys, what is the root cause of that problem? So definitely when you are doing outcome 1, guys, you have to investigate what the client is giving you. The client is about money. He wants the cheapest way out. What happens with this as engineers, integrity ends up going down the drain. Why? Because the guy says, he wants to have a Rolls Royce solution, but he's giving you $10 to solve the problem. No, do not do it. Even if you do go by the budget, you have to, on paper, you have to show that you have investigated each and every option that can indeed solve the solution. The problem, I mean. Guys, now as part of the problem, I am telling you now, you cannot solve the problem without using certain inputs. These inputs are as-built files. These inputs are going to site to verify that what is on paper is indeed what is on site. It's to verify that the ratings that are on the as-built are on site. Guys, otherwise you are working with, you don't even know what you're working with unless you verify and satisfy yourself that there is indeed a problem. Guys, please hear me. Now, outcome two, I think, oh, yeah. So what a lot of people are doing before I move to outcome two is this. They are taking the client's statement and using it as outcome one. Guys, this is not correct. If the client comes to you and says, you need to build for me low-cost houses, 3-story low-cost houses, I don't want the people to pay rent more than 3,000 Rand a month. That is the client's request. How you are going to go about doing that, making that dream come true, given the fact that things are so expensive, is actually outcome one, because you are first going to look at the terrain. You are going to look at available materials that you can use to build, because your goal is to find the cheapest material. This is the only way that the tenants are going to pay low money. So guys, what I'm trying to say is that outcome one needs you to investigate. The minute you can solve the problem without investigating, without opening a textbook, forget it. You are not doing a complex problem. You are doing routine work. Guys, I'm saying this again. The minute you can solve the problem without opening a textbook, without consulting a standard, without doing some literature survey of what other people have done, the problem is not complex. I am sorry to say this, the problem is not complex. Part of complex problems is, I told you last class, you have to investigate, you have to analyze, you have to compare, you have to assess. Then of all these assessments, you come out to something where you say, I could do nothing, I could do this, but the problem with doing nothing, I'm risking people's health, I'm risking the environment. Then, guys, once you decide from these 4 options, guys, I'm saying this again, when you are doing outcome one, guys, pay attention. You have to have alternatives. There has to be a couple of options that come out of the investigation. To solve this problem, I could put up a new building. I could take an old building and refurbish it and bring in the people. I could buy 2 houses and just combine them into one. Guys, all I'm trying to say is when you are doing outcome one, you have to come out with options. Then when you analyze, investigate, evaluate, compare, you arrive at the preferred option. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes you are given a scope where the preferred option is already outlined. Let me make an example in my industry. When I design a power line, the system planner has already done the job of deciding, should we put up a new line? Should we loop into an existing line? Should we put up a new station? So when it comes to me as a line designer, I already know that I have to build a new line. So guys, what happens in my job? Outcome one is not clearly defined in a case where I'm building a new power line. I hope this is clear. For you guys, the biggest marker that you should look out for is when you are done investigating the problem, do you have options? Sharp, that's outcome one. Outcome two is what, guys? Outcome two is the preferred option. Guys, please write it down in your books. I want you to write this because this is very important. This is the only guideline that you need to ace your report. Now I'm talking about the engineering report, naturally. Guys, if you just teach your mind to look out for the following. When you are done with outcome one, you need to have options. At least a minimum of 3 options is acceptable. Typically, you will find that there will be around 4 options that come out. That is outcome one. Now, guys, moving from outcome one to outcome two, what happens? You are choosing the preferred option from those 4 options that you are having from outcome one. Outcome two is the preferred option, guys. Let me shock you. I want to shock you, because even as part of outcome 2, guys, there is still some problem identification to be done. If you are putting up a power line, ALX, guys, are you going to do an overhead power line? Are you going to do an underground cable? If you are doing an overhead power line, are you going to use wood poles? Are you going to use steel poles? Are you going to use composite poles? Do you understand what I'm trying to say, guys? Even when you do outcome 2, it is not straightforward. You still have to consider within outcome 2, how am I going to execute this preferred option, guys? There is no other way. Please hear me clearly. Now, outcome 3, I do not like to talk about outcome 3, because outcome 3 is literally what you have done at university. So the fact that you studied at VET, the fact that you studied at TUT, it's outcome 3, because that's where you learn the theory. It is in the textbooks. Guys, let me just say this about outcome 3. Normally, outcome 3 is taken care of by software that we use at the office. And this is why whenever you are doing something, whenever you make an assumption, I encourage you to mention which software was used. Now, going back to our candidate was right by saying every time he mentioned an assumption that he used, for example, he said, I used a volume of X or a concentration of 70%. He never actually said, where does he take that assumption? Why is he confident that this assumption is going to work and the design is going to be durable, reliable, and all of the good things, right? So that was one thing that was lacking in his report. So definitely my gut feel is that the second report that he's going to write is going to be better, because he's going to write it not according to the groups of the outcomes, but according to how we logically solve engineering problems. Guys, now I've been talking too much, so I'm going to just pause here. I want to share, I'm going to share the report with you guys. Now, this is how we're going to do the day. I don't know who's going to help me with hands, guys. I don't know how to recognize hands at the moment. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to look at the screen, and the person who will deactivate their microphone first is the person that I will allow to ask the questions, because I don't know how to see the hands. We don't have Sizwe today, so unfortunately, it's one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the report now, and I'm going to go through the comments one at a time. What I'm asking us to do, guys, as you can see, my mind is hops from one idea to the next very quickly. That's just something that extroverts do. We hop from one, while you are still listening about oranges, now I'm talking about red wine. It happens, it's a real life story. So I'm going to ask us to do this, guys. After I address a comment, a particular comment, I'm going to look on the floor if we have a question. Okay, guys, when you have a question, it's fine. Just unmute your mic, because once you unmute your mic, I can actually see that your screen goes orange. It goes yellow. So once you unmute your mic, I will recognize you, and then you can ask the question. The reason I am saying let's address the comments one at a time is because at this point, we all get enough time to digest it and consume it appropriately, because it's not going to help you to have my comment, and meanwhile, you don't actually know what I was meaning by the comment. So I'm going to share with you guys the case study. Allow me to just open it quick fast. So how do I, okay, I just need to get, there it is. Okay, now I'm looking at you guys, so I do not see my share screen. Guys, do you see the share screen?
Yeah.
Okay, do you see it? Okay, good. Okay, so I need to just maybe put this on the side a little bit. If you can see the share screen, this is perfect for me. I'm trying to sort of hide my, yes, there we go. Okay, I'm trying to minimize my video screen on this side. Guys, let's start now. Guys, before I even go into the comments, I want to please allow me to say this, guys. The engineering report, right, which is basically this report right here that we are about to address, is the one where you have to write about all the 11 outcomes, guys. all the 11 outcomes have to be addressed in this report. Guys, if we look on the, this is what the right, if you look at the right column, meaning to say here where I'm highlighting in green, everything that you write in this report, you have to show the person reading it. What are you addressing? Is it outcome 1? Is it outcome 3? And guys, don't forget to indicate the level of responsibility that you are doing at the time that you are doing that particular function. Guys, are we happy with that? So therefore, you will see that I need to say this because when I do my classes, I do mix the audience. So we basically have everyone in the room today. We have technicians, we have technologists. Guys, I just want you to know, I don't want you to go home and try and look for this particular report when you are doing your application. This particular report is only applicable to professional engineers. So all the people that are applying for PRNG will be using a report like this. Okay, guys, another thing that I need to touch on before we carry on and become like really happy is this. A lot of people ask questions about the word count. Guys, the only reason why EXA is insisting on giving you a guideline, when I say guideline, the reason they're insisting to sort of like tell you how many words can you write, how many words can't you write, is simply because a lot of people get carried away with writing too much about what the project is about, and they totally get sidetracked on talking about what they have done. This report is about your contribution. Okay, I'm going to move on to comment 1. Okay, guys, let me just minimize this a little bit because now I'm looking at you guys on the side while I'm also looking at the report. Guys, look at comment 1. Comment 1 is very important.